So, what is going on out there? What is going on out there? What is good on the internet? What is good in life? Once again, the name's Akeem Balaam. Hopefully, everybody is doing good. And once again, hopefully, everybody has has been having a pretty good start. First 3 months of 2025. I actually recorded a video like this. Not too long ago, but I will admit, the first time I tried recording this particular video, it wasn't all that good, so I decided, you know what, let me see if I could possibly do another take. So that's exactly what I decided to do. So I just wanted to come on here, particularly, with the fact that both Final Fours, as the time I'm recording this, both Final Fours, I think are a day or so or getting away. Basically, it's around the time of both Final Fours. Of course, you have the women's Final Four, which is down at Tampa at Amalie Arena, the home of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and that will include South Carolina, Duke's in the men's Final Four, but that will include South Carolina, Texas, UConn, and UCLA. And on the men's side, they're in San Antonio. At the Alamo Dome, and that Final Four will include all number one seeds. So it's basically an all chalk Final Four on the men's side, as you got Duke, Auburn, Florida, and Houston. So one would think that given the proximity of Houston to San Antonio, that the Cougs probably going to go into that one with a home court advantage, since San Antonio, of course, is right next to Houston. But I didn't want to talk about home court advantage unless you want to mention it probably somewhere in the comments. I wanted to mention a phenomenon that I think has been going on throughout college basketball, I think for the last several seasons now. And what I think that phenomenon just so happens to be is the fact that we are seeing more star power get built on the women's side more so than what we are seeing on the men's side. It is very interesting because, of course, a couple of years ago, in the women's Final Four, in the women's national championship game, you had LSU and Iowa. That was, of course, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and that was, of course, the game where Angel did the John Cena "You Can't See Me" at Caitlin, even though Caitlin did that and did that in several games earlier that season. So I still have no idea why the press made such a big deal about it when Angel did it in the Natty, but that was obviously a huge moment for the sport, and that was a game, of course, where Reese LSU team got the better of Clark Iowa team in that national championship game. So in many ways, that was, some will probably say, the beginning, I guess you could say, of maybe more attention being put on the women's game to a certain extent. But it is very clear that when you look at just this women's tournament as a whole, just this women's March Madness as a whole, that we are starting to see more of these household names on the college side really become established more so than is the case with the men. Like on the men's tournament, particularly with the men's Final Four, you ask a lot of casual fans, and the only name that they probably would be able to mention would probably be somebody like a Cooper Flagg. And the main reason as to why they would mention somebody like a Cooper Flagg doesn't even really have anything to do with college. It has more to do with the fact that folks are saying, okay, Cooper Flagg's going to be a number one overall NBA draft pick. So folks are saying, oh, teams are tanking for Cooper Flagg or whatever. Who knows if that actually is indeed going on. But that's the only name that I guess you could say that a lot of folks would actually be able to name on the men's side. And on the women's side, you have so many big names. By the way, I do have to call out the media, particularly some of my own media brethren. Why are we still trying to make Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese into a thing? Like, why? Why are we trying to make that into a rivalry? Caitlin has said that there's no animosity, between her and Angel. So I still do not understand why so many folks are desperately trying to make fetch happen with Caitlin and Angel. It is 2025. That national championship game between Iowa and LSU was 2 years ago. It's time to be like Frozen and let it go. Let it go. Sorry, I just had to get on a soapbox a little bit because something like that still kind of irks me. I mean, Angel's now with the Chicago Sky. Caitlin's now with the Indiana Fever. They're going to be playing opening weekend this upcoming season in the WNBA. I believe that game is either on ESPN or ABC. Either way, it's a nationally televised game, but there's no rivalry there. If anything, if they want to turn it into a rivalry, they can turn it into a geographical rivalry between the two teams, which is something they probably should have done a long time ago. But as far as Caitlin and Angel, there's no rivalry there. So I'm just saying, like I said, there's no rivalry there. So it's just time for the media to recognize, in my opinion. But what I wanted to mention is, like I said, just the fact that we've had so many big names, on the women's side. I mean, you look at just even the teams that are still remaining in this tournament. I mean, with UConn, obviously the big name of big names is Paige Bueckers. More than likely going to be the number 1 overall draft pick in this year's WNBA draft. The Dallas Wings hold the first overall pick. And also you got other big names as well. Like, I remember seeing something from somebody where they were pretty much said that they could probably name almost an entire bench on the women's, on some of these women's teams, but they couldn't really name anybody really on the men's teams other than Cooper Flagg, and he plays at Duke, obviously. So, obviously Paige is the big name, but also you got AZ Fudd, Ashlyn Shade, Sarah Strong, one of the best freshmen in basketball, in women's college basketball. So that's UConn. And then, of course, South Carolina is obviously a who's who of big names. Obviously, you got Tahina Paopao, who is, being seen as a possible first-round WNBA draft pick. Chloe Kitts, who really in many ways has been the most consistent of all of South Carolina's players. And then when you look up and down that roster, obviously one of the reasons as to why South Carolina has been so successful this season has because of their bench. And that bench happens to be anchored by Malaysia Fulwiley. Not only her, but also another star freshman in Joyce Edwards, even though she's struggled throughout most of this tournament. So obviously South Carolina has some huge names that have become household names as well. And then, of course, folks remember the defensive job that Raven Johnson did on Caitlin Clark in last year's national championship game. They called her the Caitlin Stopper, after Ruben Patterson, of course, once upon a time, once dubbed himself the Kobe Stopper. So yeah, South Carolina, Dawn Staley, they got big names on that team. And then you look at a team like UCLA. You got Gabriela Jaquez, you got Lauren Betts, Kiki Rice, Janiyah Barker, who began her career with her college career at Texas A&M before ultimately transferring to UCLA, and that turned out to be a pretty good decision for her because now she's in a position to possibly win a national championship with the Bruins, their first time in the Final Four. And then, of course, you got Texas. They're another one of the top teams, obviously, with Madison Booker, Taylor Jones, Rory Harmon, Kyla Oldacre, and then you even look at some of the other names that, of course, are no longer in the tournament, but also big names in the just in the women's college ranks as a whole. I mean, you look at somebody like an Olivia Miles, who just played her final season at Notre Dame, and she's now in the transfer portal. She had a chance to declare for the WNBA draft, and there were a lot of draft boards that were saying that she was more than likely going to be possibly the number 2 pick overall to the Seattle Storm, but she decided, I want to stay one more year in college, and I'm going to enter the transfer portal. So Olivia Miles is definitely a big name, as is her soon-to-be former Notre Dame teammate in Hannah Hidalgo. Then, of course, you got the big name of big names, which, of course, is JuJu Watkins. And who knows what would have happened with USC season if, she would have been healthy throughout the tournament. For all we know, USC probably would have been, would have made it to Tampa in the Final Four as well. I know I originally had UConn. I know I originally had USC winning the entire thing, but when you lose somebody like a JuJu Watkins, that is a tough thing to overcome, and that turned out to be too tough, too much for USC to overcome. They still have Kiki Iriafen, but yeah, that was just too much. And by the way, Kiki Iriafen, another draft pick more than likely going into the WNBA. And then you have another team like an LSU with Flau'Jae Johnson and Michaela Williams and Anissa Morrow. Morrow also being looked at as a possible first round draft pick as well to the WNBA. Then you go and look at a team like a TCU and the fact that they have somebody like a Haley Van Lith, who has taken 3 teams now, has participated in Elite Eights with 3 teams, LSU, Louisville, and TCU. And if I remember correctly, Haley Van Lith also participated in a Final Four with Louisville, as a matter of fact. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of big names, and because of the fact that there are so many big names, it just is proof that women's college basketball is still indeed thriving even after Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese went into the pros. So it just shows that women's college basketball does indeed have staying power, despite what some people were kind of predicting, that they felt like, women's college basketball was going to start a bit of a downslide after Caitlin Clark. Nah, it's not, there's no downslide here. It's still thriving, and it always will thrive. It's bigger and better than ever, and it's only going to become bigger, and I am here for it, because we definitely need more. We definitely need for women's sports to certainly be on the same plane as the men. So that's just something that I wanted to come on here, and I just wanted to mention, because I think it is an extremely fascinating thing overall when you look at the women's game. And one more thing that I also wanted to mention as far as Olivia Miles is concerned. For those that are saying that Olivia Miles is only staying in college because of NIL, the thing is, when you go into the WNBA, that NIL money does not expire. It simply becomes endorsements. So if Olivia Miles were to go into the WNBA, she would be making NIL money on top of her WNBA salary. So I think that is a gross misconception, that these endorsements that these players have inked up all of a sudden expire the moment they go into the WNBA. So that's just another misconception that I think folks are really trying to throw at the W. So that's just something as well. But yeah, I just think that is an extremely interesting phenomena that we have seen over the last few years with the women's college game, that in many ways it's gotten, it's on the same plane as the men's game, because one thing about it, basketball is a star-driven sport. Basketball is a team sport, as is baseball, as is football. But the one thing about basketball is that it's the most individualized of the major team sports. So they understand that when folks want to tune in, they want to tune in to see stars. They want to tune in to see Paige. They want to tune in to see Flau'Jae. They want to tune in to see JuJu. So they completely understand this, and it's showing in the March Madness ratings. I mean, if I remember correctly, I think ESPN put out a graphic basically saying that the Elite Eight ratings actually have the highest ratings ever since, the second highest ratings ever for an Elite Eight. Only last year's, if I remember correctly, was higher. This year's Elite Eight got more viewership than in 2023. So it shows where the women's game is at, and it shows that the women's game is indeed where it's at. So it's just a really fascinating time and a really great time to be following women's sports when you look at just the growth, the star power, and just everything going on with it. So it's an exciting time, and a big reason why it's an exciting time is because basketball has recognized that it is a star-driven sport. So I just wanted to come on here and just, give my 2 cents on that. But what do you think? What do you think of, of all of this that's going on, and the idea of the fact that we have so many stars in the women's game, and it just seems as though that the men's game just can't seem to keep up? And a big part of that also has a lot to do with eligibility requirements, because you got to be at least 22 to enter the WNBA draft. So when these kids when these talents finally step into the WNBA, we know who Paige Bueckers is. We know who Flau'Jae Johnson is. We know who JuJu Watkins is. So it's not like these are just nameless faces. We're familiar with what they did in college, and we're anticipating what they are going to do making waves at the pro level. So I think, like I said, it's just a fascinating time, and it's a great thing overall. But what do you think? Like I said, rate, comment, react, reply, add, and subscribe. I'm just one guy on here and just talking about the growth of the women's game. It's a beautiful thing to watch. Absolutely. It's a great thing to watch. So until next time, I'm Akeem Balaam, and I'm signing off. If you're down in Tampa, hopefully you're, especially to all of my media brothers and sisters that are down in Central Florida for the Final Four, wish I could have been there. But if you're down there in Central Florida, in Tampa for the Final Four, live it up, have fun, and just have a great time. Enjoy the Florida sun. So, hopefully everything goes great. So, till next time, this is Akeem signing off. See you on the internet someplace.